Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, what's good, original crew, man? We're back today, man. We got another Stretch Me, bro. Crispy disappearances that are still unsolved.
What did you say?
Huh?
What did you say?
What you mean what I say? I said creepy.
Oh. My ears heard something different.
What you hear?
Crispy.
No, I said creepy.
Oh, creepy. I can't hear. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry.
I'm just breathing. Breathe in. Hey, make sure you check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go. If you want to first support, you got to do it. Check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's visuals,
like it in with a thumbs up.
Hey, man, let's go. Let's check it out. Let's see what's about. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get it.
That are still unsolved.
Oh.
Crazy missing persons cases that are still unsolved. Kenneth Lee Veach was born in Clark County, Las Vegas in 1967. He was always drawn to the nature that surrounded him, and throughout his adolescence into his adulthood.
Is this the one that fell, the cave guy that went looking?
Is it? I'm not sure.
I think it is.
Loved anything that involved being outside and experiencing nature. Kenneth, or Kenny, was actually so passionate about his outdoor excursions that he had an entire YouTube channel dedicated to documenting his adventures, as well as his inventions, with the channel being named Snakebit McGee. The channel still exists to this day and has 73,000 subscribers, and it currently has 5 videos posted on it, with the most ominous being named M Cave Hike. The reason why this video is significant is what we'll be getting into, and is directly correlated with the mysterious disappearance of Kenny Veach. The year is 2014, and Kenny Veach is on YouTube looking at interesting videos, similar to what you're doing right now. And Kenny happened to stumble on a video that was rather obscure. It was a video of a son of an Area 51 technician, and in this video he was talking about things that his father had told him while drunk. After watching this video, Kenny left a comment describing a very odd situation he experienced near Area 51 himself. In the comment, he mentioned that when he was hiking in the Sheep Range, which is very close to Area 51, he discovered a cave that was shaped like the letter M. As he approached this cave, the cave made his body vibrate, and the closer that he got to this cave, the more that his body began to vibrate and feel unease. He described the feeling as uncomfortable and made him feel scared, so scared in fact that he didn't approach the cave any further, and actually did the exact opposite, fleeing from the cave immediately and going directly back to his car, cutting his hike short. This comment was simply intended to share a peculiar story that happened also with Area 51, but his comment quickly gained attention. People began to reply to Kenny's comment, either questioning the authenticity behind it, sharing sympathy, or even motivating him to go and revisit this location to find the truth and dig deeper on what exactly was going on. After getting enough responses of people either telling him his story was fake or telling him that he needs to prove his claim or seek more truth by revisiting the cave, he planned a second trip. And in October of 2014, Kenny Veach returned to the Sheep Range outside of Area 51 in an attempt to locate the M-shaped cave. This second trip was documented, and that documentation is the video titled M Cave Hike. Already, there's some interesting things about this situation. Specifically, that in this 20-minute video, Veach reported that he saw a black Ram truck watching him from the ridgeline in the mountain range behind him this entire hike that he was having. And he was also not able to find this cave the second time around. But obviously, the mystery doesn't end here, and it's only truly beginning. After the first hike ending in fear and abandonment, and the second hike ending in failure, Kenny planned a third trip, where he publicly announced that he would be looking for the M Cave and be finding it once and for all. On November 10th, 2014, only a few weeks after the second attempt, Kenny Veach went on a third expedition looking for the M Cave. This third hike was like any other hike Kenny could have gone on. He packed a cell phone, a gun, and other supplies into his truck, and even informed his girlfriend before he left what he was up to and where he was going to be. He did not give specific details about his location, but he did tell her that he was going on a trip, he was looking for the M Cave, and he would be back at some point, which was typical behavior for Kenny. He was an experienced outdoorsman, and it wasn't uncommon for him to spend multiple days outside alone. Although when Kenny left for this third expedition looking for the M Cave, he was never seen again. After several days of not hearing anything from Kenny, his girlfriend reported him missing, and a large-scale search was underway. The search party looking for Kenny consisted consisted of volunteers and officials from the Nevada Search and Rescue Team. And these men and women worked tirelessly day and night, searching high and low through mountains and caves of the Mojave Desert. One of the biggest challenges these search and rescue teams faced was the fact that the general location that Kenny said he was going was not an easy hike at all. It was mountainous. The landscape was dotted with old mine shafts. The area itself was isolated, and according to Kenny in old forum posts, it took roughly 10 hours of hiking to go from his car to the M cave, meaning that this search and rescue crew had a lot of ground to cover. On top of just geographical issues, this area was also known for being dangerous. Specifically because it was so remote and so isolated, there was reports of drug activity and even bodies being dumped in the general area. Not to mention being literally beside a military base, there was also claims of reported chemical disposal in the area as well. However, even with this uphill battle that the volunteers and search and rescue team were facing, they still continued their search. And on November 22nd, 12 days after Kenny had initially left for this third trip to the M cave, the search team found something. Near an abandoned mine shaft, one of the search and rescue members found a cell phone that was confirmed to have been owned by Kenny Veach. But unfortunately, this was the only piece of evidence that was ever found. There was no piece of clothing, no other personal items, and no clues anywhere. The only information that the phone really gave was that Kenny likely got to where he was looking to go, as this phone was in the general location that Kenny described the M cave being in. But that's where the facts end and the speculation begins. Because after the disappearance of Kenny Veach gained attention, people began to have a plethora of theories. Likely the most possible and accepted conclusion to the story actually comes from Kenny's girlfriend herself. As years after this entire situation happened, she was informed that Kenny's story was going viral online, and she felt compelled to leave a comment on Kenny's M cave hike video. The comment is long, and if you want to read it in its entirety, on screen is a screenshot, and I will quickly mention the main points Kenny's girlfriend Sharon makes. One of the biggest revelations that Sharon shares in this comment was that Kenny had been struggling with depression for many years. She, being his girlfriend, was obviously aware of this, and he had opened up to her, and he had made it clear to her that in the time leading up to his disappearance, it was progressively getting worse. And Kenny had even expressed his thoughts of suicide to Sharon directly. That alone is extremely upsetting, both for Kenny and for his girlfriend, who had to carry that burden with him. And if you or a loved one have experienced depression, then you know how upsetting even that part of the story is. One chilling quote Kenny mentioned to Sharon was that if he ever decided to end things, quote, "no one will ever find me." On top of sharing this quote, she also stated a very interesting fact, that Kenny had not taken his video camera for this third attempt to find the M cave, which was odd because his second attempt was filmed, right? And he even hyped up his third attempt in video. So why would he not bring his camera on a trip that he publicly said he would be filming? Sharon claims that he didn't take his camera because he obviously didn't intend to record anything. On top of sharing facts, Sharon also shared a few of her own suspicions. She believes that Kenny specifically left his phone in a mine shaft to avoid being tracked. And she even states explicitly that, quote, "I believe he committed suicide. He battled depression for many years and would not take medication or see a doctor. He quit his job a little more than a year before he disappeared." Truthfully, I don't know if anybody could possibly make a stronger claim than Sharon. She was in a committed, long-term relationship with Kenny, knew the ins and outs of his personality and life, and was the last person who ever saw Kenny. However, with Kenny never being found, it's impossible to confirm these claims. And when facts aren't concrete, people are always going to make their own assumptions, leading to the other two theories surrounding Kenny's disappearance. The second theory is that Kenny simply experienced an accidental death, which is possible considering the conditions that Kenny was hiking in. The Nevada desert is harsh, with extremely hot and extremely cold temperatures. And specifically in the area of the M cave, there was a plethora of old mine shafts to potentially fall into. However, the elephant in the room obviously is the fact that Kenny was experienced in this area. And on top of being experienced in this specific area, he was also an experienced outdoorsman, making this theory a bit tough to believe, but still plausible. However, the third theory is really just a conspiracy theory, and is essentially just the belief that Kenny was getting too close to finding something out. And for that reason, Kenny was killed by the US military, specifically so he didn't discover the secret of the M cave. It's definitely out there, but with no facts and no sign of Kenny ever being found, it's not impossible. Potentially one of the most interesting facts about this entire situation is that even though so many aspects of the story are still available online, online, Kenny's YouTube channel, Kenny's video about the M Cave, Kenny's girlfriend's comment on the M Cave video. The one thing that was removed from the internet was Kenny's comment on the original video that sparked this entire situation. Whether Kenny deleted it or someone else deleted it, the comment was there and somewhere along the line was removed. Nobody truly knows what happened to Kenny Veach and where he may be today, dead or alive. Really quickly,
I'll say this, pertaining to his comment being deleted, I can see people going to the video, the original video, and the original video person removing the comment, because it's a thing of y'all only coming to the video, going to this comment, you know what I'm saying? So let me remove it so y'all won't be fishing like for something and only going to that comment. You know what I mean? It's not y'all not coming to the video for the information in the video. Y'all coming to the video to snoop in the comments. Which also, if anybody cares about the YouTube algorithm or the YouTube video, they would remove that comment, right? Yeah. A lot of people would. They'd be like, hey, is false engagement, is, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to see comments flooded in my comment section or my notifications pertaining to one individual's comment, you know? Yeah. So that I can see the whoever's behind that removing his comment from basis of that. Which theory makes sense to you?
The first one.
She would know. That's his woman. And if she has came to cope with that understanding and that acceptance, I think everybody else should.
And the only reason I say that only because his reason for going back out there was because, you know, people encourage like, hey, go back and look for it. Like, hey, and then you're determined to find it as well, but you didn't take your camera to even document it. Like, also, I mean, and if you do go with like the second theory that something else happened, you know,
that's a possibility too.
Then anything a possibility, because I'm like, okay, then if that's the case, that okay, someone probably did do something and they got rid of his truck. So I'm like, where's his vehicle? Like, that was never located. So I'm like, I would think that the vehicle would still be there if he did self-harm out there, unless he went out there, took the phone, made it seem as if he was there, and then went somewhere else.
That too, that is a high chance of possibility that he could have faked that he was going there.
Or he did go there because his phone was found there.
But but I'm saying like fake it that I'm out here, but left so he won't be traced.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Okay, he could have ran away.
It's a possibility that, he probably wanted to, you know, whatever. You can go with that because we've heard those stories before.
Because sometimes people who deal with mental depression or anything, they can go to a deep state where they don't even understand that they're doing certain things and they just do it.
Yeah. Or if you want to go the conspiracy route, we can go there too, because those things are real sometimes as well, if that's what you believe in. So anything, honestly, especially since we don't have anything still to this day, don't have a body, don't have any answers.
And I'll say this, I prefer just to go, if that's what his family and his loved ones, his girlfriend and people in his corner decided to accept. Yeah. I will hope the internet also decides to accept it and move on and let them be able to heal, go through the process, and stop making. We done seen so many videos of people constantly talking about this. If they believe he's at rest, let him rest and let's move on and let bygones be bygones in a situation like that, you know? Because that's what the family want. Like, if they have truly came to the understanding that this is possibly an idea that he chose to do, like, respect that, you know? But if they were leaning into the other thing, I'll be like, let's also lean into it with the family, you know what I'm saying? But who knows, man? I don't think we would ever get the, like, true, you know what I'm saying, answer, but who knows?
Happened to Kenny Veach and where he may be today, dead or alive. Really quickly, before we get to the next two stories in this video, new quick hits. Thank you, Five, for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get to the next story. It's Saturday, October the 21st, 1978. Relatively new pilot Frederick Valentich was embarking on a short training flight in a Cessna 128L light aircraft. The flight itself wasn't extremely long, only 232 kilometers or 125 nautical miles. And this flight was connecting Melbourne, Australia to King Island following the Bass Strait. At this point, Frederick had 150 total flight hours and even held a Class 4 instrument rating, which authorized him to fly at night with the restriction of only being able to fly at night in visible meteorological conditions, essentially meaning clear enough skies to be able to see the ground, terrain, and other aircraft. Frederick had also applied twice to enlist in the Royal Australian Air Force, but was rejected each time due to inadequate educational qualifications. Although as determined as Frederick was to become a pilot, his grades weren't necessarily reflecting his passion. On top of actively taking training flights and also being in the Air Training Corps for the Australian Air Force, Frederick was also studying to become a commercial pilot as well. Although, even with all of his training, he failed all 5 of his commercial license exams twice. Even with failed exams and rejected applications, Frederick was motivated to fly, and this brings us back to October 21st, 1978. Frederick's takeoff was normal, and the beginning of his flight appeared to be relatively calm and uneventful, although things began to get peculiar when he radioed to the Melbourne flight service at 7:06 p.m. It was in this radio message that he reported an unidentified aircraft that was following him at 4,500 feet. Air traffic control confirmed that there was no traffic at that level, although Frederick was certain that he was seeing something. Frederick replied stating that he could see a large unknown aircraft, which appeared to be illuminated but couldn't confirm the exact type of plane he was looking at. And then quickly after confirmed that this plane had passed over him, roughly 1,000 feet above him, moving at a very fast speed. Once again, air traffic control had no answers. Almost immediately after, Frederick radioed in again, saying that this aircraft was orbiting above him and that it had a shiny metal surface with a green light on it. And then also stated that this other pilot might be purposely toying with him in his aircraft. And it was with his next radio message that Frederick revealed something concerning. He was experiencing engine problems. But before Frederick could even finish his sentence, air traffic control was asking him, what kind of plane is this? To which Frederick could only say, it's not an aircraft. And it was right after he said these words. His transmissions were interrupted by the sounds of metallic scraping, all contact was lost, and Frederick was never heard from again. It wasn't long after the connection was cut that a search and rescue mission was underway, and a sea and air search took place to find him as soon as possible. The search went on for 4 days, and was concluded on October 25th, 1978 with no results. No sign of Frederick, no signs of his plane. The investigation was simply presumed fatal. The story is obviously upsetting and doesn't end there. And I didn't even mention this earlier, but when this all took place, Frederick was only 20 years old. He was a young, semi-experienced, and also struggling pilot. Frederick also had gotten into legal trouble from some of his flights, specifically for accidentally flying into controlled air zones in Sydney, and even intentionally flying into clouds, which was prohibited for his classifications. Both of these are odd, because if you are dedicating your life to a career in aviation, why would you intentionally fly into clouds on multiple occasions if you knew it could lead to prosecution, which in his case, it almost did. Those facts are interesting, but what's also interesting is a quote from Frederick's father, who stated that Frederick was not only a large believer in UFOs, but was also seriously worried about being attacked by them on his flights. It's even stated that 6 days before his disappearance, Frederick talked to his girlfriend specifically about the possibility that a UFO could take him away. And potentially what's most odd about this entire flight that Frederick took was the fact that he never told anybody the truth of why he was taking this flight. Sure, it was a relatively standard training flight, but why on a Saturday evening? His flight took off at 6 p.m. and it was a multi-hour flight. It's reported that Frederick told flight officials that he was just going to King Island to pick up some friends and fly them back. But it's also reported that he told other officials that he was going to pick up crayfish. And after the disappearance happened, investigations confirmed that both of these stated reasons were untrue. But that's where the facts end. And once again, where the speculation begins to run wild. All we know is that we have a 20-year-old struggling pilot in training who has an interesting obsession and fear of UFOs, who took a mysterious flight from Melbourne to King Island, and during this flight claimed to have seen a UFO and was never seen again. But it's curious to think of what could have possibly happened. And obviously, since 46 years have passed since this entire situation happened, some theories have popped up. One of the official suspicions comes from the Western Australia Department of Transportation, who stated that Frederick became disoriented, saw his own lights reflected in the water, or saw a nearby island while flying upside down, which is potentially plausible, but there was no communication indicating that Frederick was in such a situation that would have left him upside down. Some people believe that Frederick actually staged his own disappearance, and instead of going to King Island, was actually going to Cape Otway, which was possible to fly to with the plane that Frederick was in and with the amount of fuel that he had. And although there's no radar to confirm this activity in the Cape Otway area, Melbourne police did receive reports of a mysterious landing that took place by a light aircraft at the same time that Frederick disappeared. A third and potentially most disheartening theory is that Frederick did this intentionally. Although interviews with doctors and personal friends of Frederick all stated that this was likely impossible, which, I mean, nothing's impossible, but if nobody thinks that this is the case, I think there's validity that this might not be the answer. And one of the last major groups of belief involves aliens. Basically, UFOologists claim that UFOs either destroyed Frederick's ship with Frederick inside or abducted him and then destroyed his ship. And you could potentially put some validity on these claims due to what Frederick was actually saying in his radio comms. Those are kind of three of the initial theories, but there are actually more modern theories that are definitely worth mentioning. The first comes from Brian Dunning, who made the observation that the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out a few years before this entire situation, and the things that Frederick were saying on the radio kind of sounded similar from some of the dialogue from the movie, not to mention the fact that this movie was also popular with pilots. So with that information, Dunning ultimately speculated that Frederick likely was trying to reenact the scene in real life for his own, personal enjoyment. He was deliberately flying his aircraft in a sporadic manner to kind of put on a show for air traffic controllers, but within him having this fun and saying these lies and flying in an unsafe way, he essentially became disoriented and crashed unintentionally. I'm not sure how valid it is, but I think it's interesting to consider, specifically knowing that he did intentionally fly into clouds when he wasn't supposed to, so it's not like he wasn't against breaking the rules. So if you really loved this movie and really loved aliens, maybe he thought it'd be cool to take a little flight, tell the story on the way, and then once he came back, he'd be like, wow, that was crazy, I had a UFO encounter, and just basically allow that legend to live on as part of his personal lore. But like I mentioned, these are all speculations, and the mystery of the missing pilot, Frederick Valentich, remains to this day unsolved, 46 years and 6 months later. Unfortunately, there's a lot more unsolved missing persons cases. And if you guys truly enjoyed this video and would like me to create a series out of it, just leave a comment below, or leave a like.
What you think happened?
More so, maybe like a staging of something.
At 20?
Huh?
I'm saying with him being 20 years old. My bad. Yeah.
I mean, you could stage anything at any age. I don't know what that means, but especially since he was so like obsessed with like UFOs and stuff like that. Something could have like went wrong possibly. And it could have just been, a coincidence that he was talking about the UFOs or whatever. But something could have happened or a crash.
The only thing my concern is where's the plane?
Right.
Even if it was in the water, I would hope that y'all would have been able to recover it.
But not always. We've heard about crashes and stuff.
Well, not recover, but at least be able to locate the plane.
I mean, with this one, it's a little kind of, I don't know. I don't think UFOs were involved, but...
Okay, he kept flying somewhere else?
He could have, and landed somewhere else. Maybe he wanted to start a new life. Maybe he didn't like the life he was... I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, anything is possible when you don't really have any answers. Like, you don't have anything. You don't have a plane. You don't have any sighting of it. You don't have a body.
But what about the lack of his education sense? Would he have the mental capacity to even fake something like that?
Child.
He's not the smartest one in the bunch, so
maybe he got the idea from somewhere else. Maybe it's not his original idea.
Maybe it was the movie. I ain't never watched the movie.
I've never watched it either. Yeah, this one a little kind of, I don't know.
Support never goes unnoticed and is always appreciated. But with that being said, let's continue to the final story. The year is 1993, and we are days away from the much-anticipated Super Bowl weekend. David Glenn Lewis, like almost any man at the time, was excited about Super Bowl weekend. And coincidentally, David was about to have Super Bowl weekend all to himself. David was a lawyer and a family man, and he lived with his wife and daughter in Amarillo, Texas. David's wife and daughter were actually going to Houston for the weekend to have a bit of a getaway, and specifically do some shopping. Now, this is a trip that David would typically be a part of, but because this was Super Bowl weekend, he decided that he'd stay back because he didn't want to miss the big game, and likely just wanted some alone time as well. On Friday, January 29th, 1993, David's wife and daughter left for their planned shopping trip in Dallas. But on January 31st, after what I can only imagine to be a fun shopping trip, David's wife and daughter returned home, slightly later in the evening, basically right after the Super Bowl ended. But what they came home to was a bit peculiar. The TV was on, the VCR was actually still recording the game, there was 2 freshly made turkey sandwiches in the fridge, there was laundry in the laundry machine.
Well, the VCR was recorded. Well, no, 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 no.
David's wedding ring and watch were on the kitchen counter, but David was nowhere to be seen. David's wife, Karen, obviously assumed David was somewhere nearby, potentially watching the game at a friend's house, although when they didn't find him at all that night, they began to get concerned. The following morning, on February 1st, David's wife, Karen, called the police and reported him missing. But like every other story in this video, this isn't where the story ends. It's where the story begins. And in this story specifically, the twist at the end of it is potentially the most mind-boggling in this entire video. Back to February 1st. What happened? Karen was convinced that her husband wasn't just at a friend's house for the night watching the game, and although she may have been slightly irritated or concerned the night before, this morning she was only concerned, and that concern was growing. Once police were involved, it wasn't long before information began rolling in. Although with all of the information coming to light about the situation, there was only more questions being uncovered, and almost no answers. The first pieces of information that became available came from the police. The same day that the report was made, police actually found Lewis's car parked downtown by a courthouse. When the police searched his car, they found all of his keys under the floor mat. Also hidden within the car were David's checkbook, driver's license, and 2 of his credit cards. After police found David's vehicle, they checked his bank activity, and it was at that point when the plot only grew thicker, because his bank activity was strange to say the least. On January 30th, the day after his wife and daughter left town, $5,000 was deposited into his account, but it's unknown who did this and why they did this. And then the next day, the 31st, the day of the Super Bowl, either David or someone using David's card purchased a plane ticket from Amarillo to Dallas, and then another plane ticket was purchased from Los Angeles to Dallas. Both of these plane tickets were in David's name, but it's unconfirmed if either of these plane tickets were used. When the police first brought all of these discoveries to Karen, she was obviously concerned, but little did the police know that Karen had her own bombshell for the police. Karen mentioned to the police that David specifically expressed to Karen that he felt like his life was in danger. Lewis had specifically been a defendant in a lawsuit brought against him and several other lawyers, although after several months of this lawsuit going on, David was the only defendant who has not yet disposed the case. Some people believe that the law firm that David worked for that was being sued by a previous client were pressuring David into giving a disposition that wasn't fully accurate, trying to make him lie about some of the wrongdoings of the law firm that he worked for the benefit of the law firm. Because all of the other lawyers at this law firm had given a disposition and David hadn't, it definitely could have put a target on his back if he was not willing to comply with their less than integral requests of him. For 11 months following the disappearance, even with all of the weird information that they found initially and continued to find, there was absolutely no sign of David anywhere. Not a motive, not a body, not evidence, nothing, literally nothing. And after those 11 months, the official conclusion that the authorities came to on this case was that David must have just left on his own accord and decided to start a new life somewhere else without telling anybody. And undoubtedly, that was a hard pill to swallow for the family. But unfortunately, that was the reality they had to accept. And that alone is crazy and peculiar. If the story ended right there, this would definitely be a story worthy of this video. Somebody disappearing without a trace who seemed to have been home hours ago is just mind-boggling. But the story doesn't end here at all, because 10 years after the case was closed, a bombshell was dropped on the entire situation. In 2004, just over 10 years after David initially went missing, a bored police officer in Washington state was researching cold cases while on duty. Something this police officer likely did often. And on this specific day, this police officer had stumbled on the case of David Glenn Lewis. At first, the story was like many others that he read, but what caught his attention was the photo associated with this missing person. This police officer took one look at David and realized that this was somebody that he had not only seen before, but this was a man that he had found dead 10 years ago. This person that he had found dead in 1993 was actually a hit and run case. And because he was so sure that he had seen this man before, he did a bit more digging and tried to line up the dates. and he was able to confirm that the man that he had found dead, he had found only a day after David Lewis was reported missing, meaning that the timelines added up, and he had some further digging to do. This is where things get even more strange, because the person this police officer found in Washington State in this hit and run case, although he looked like David Lewis, he didn't have any identification of being David Lewis. He was an unknown person wearing military fatigues walking down the side of the highway with no ID and no personal belongings at all. And unfortunately, he was struck by a vehicle and left for dead, which is where the police officer eventually found him. But even though this police officer was certain that these people looked the exact same, and the dates kind of lined up, how could he be sure that these two people were the same person? After all, this hit and run case took place 1,600 miles from where David Lewis supposedly disappeared from. And although there was plane tickets on David Lewis's credit cards, none of them involved Washington State. So the only way this police officer could know for certain was by getting a DNA test done, which after some time and some convincing, he was able to have the DNA test performed. And the results from that test confirmed that this unnamed man that was found dead on the side of the road on February 1st, 1993 in Washington State was indeed David Glenn Lewis, who was only a night earlier watching the Super Bowl in the comfort of his own home. Nobody knows why David was in Washington State, a place where he had no friends, no family, no connections. Nobody even knows how he got to Washington State. His own personal vehicle was at the courthouse. He was wearing military fatigues that weren't his. And nobody even knows why he even left his couch, let alone the state. So like I mentioned, even though a decade after this disappearance happened, his body was found and confirmed, nothing about this mystery is solved whatsoever, and no substantial evidence up until today has been discovered. Even with this discovery, even though David specifically claimed that he believed his life was in danger, it is officially believed that David simply got up and decided to leave on his own accord, and there was no foul play whatsoever. And for the families, I truly feel for them, because I can't imagine how disheartening it is to have that official conclusion be the case when obviously something was going on here. But unfortunately, this story and the other two we spoke about all have the same ending. No truth is officially known. The causes, the motivations, the truth about what actually happened is still a mystery, and might remain a mystery forever. And with that, I would like to once again invite you to leave a comment below if you have any thoughts about these cases. Do you have any additional information about these cases? Is there anything I missed? Do you have a theory? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading your comments, and I'd love to spark conversation. Besides this, once again, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see a part 2 or maybe even a series about...
What you think, sid? Because when I said what you said...
Because I was thinking, I was like, that sounds like foul play. I mean... Y'all felt like it was a hit and run, whatever. I feel like it's deeper than that. I feel like, because there's no way that this man got from his house to where this body was found. How he get there? How he get 1,600? How he get there? And then even with the tickets, I feel like somebody probably did that to throw it off. Like buy like the plane tickets here, and then you leave your ID behind. You leave your what was it, his watch and his wedding band and his credit cards and all of that behind, because we don't want this person to... Because
his watch and wedding band was found in what?
At the house on the counter.
At the house. His
credit card
keys and cards. And
cards was found in the car under the mat.
Yeah. That gives every indication of somebody trying to hide something.
Downtown in front of the courthouse.
Yeah. Somebody trying to hide you from something.
It just don't sound right at all. That is just so strange to me.
Sound like they came to the house.
Something.
Because you had the game on. You had your sandwiches ready. Maybe you were sitting down. And when they came, come with us. You ain't got no choice. You ain't turn off nothing.
Or did you... I don't know, man.
Or was he trying to run? Nah, because
Because
somebody even changed your clothes. Because say for instance, you would have had some kind of evidence or something else on the clothes, so they changed your clothes and put you in the army fatigue.
Or were you going somewhere for you to leave your watch and wedding band behind, just in case if something happened?
But why change clothing and all that too?
That's what I'm saying. Like, is this if you was going to check something out, and just in case something went wrong?
No, you don't. You still
I'm
don't.
just thinking of all.
You don't leave your watch and wedding. No, no.
Just in case, so that your wife can know, like, something is wrong. He's not here. Something to indicate that. Like, he doesn't take off his...
But, okay, the wedding band, you might leave the wedding, but why the watch?
I don't know. Maybe somebody did do come. I don't know. It's just very crazy. I'm just really trying to figure out how he got on the side of the road from, like, that's the distance.
From Dallas to Washington. That's a distance. Not Washington, D.C., but Washington State. That's a distance still.
I don't know, man. That's strange. But, yeah. All of these are kind of like, because you don't have any answers. So all you have is like to speculate all day and come up with all these different, theories and hypotheticals. And I don't know. It's just, I think that's the sad part about it, because you don't have answers. You don't have that closure just to like know what happened. But yeah.
Yeah. Hey man, y'all spam us up in the comments. Y'all let us know y'all thoughts about it for us in the comment section down below. But until next time, y'all know how it go, man. I do go by the name DJ New Kid. This is
Sierra House.
We are. We out.
No time to kick it, got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar, 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 dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar, 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 dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.